Okay, and welcome to this week's episode of the UFO Show, brought to you in part by Bet99.com. Remember to head over to our website, www.area51sportsnetwork.com/betting, where you can get $600 on top of your initial deposit up to $600. So, this week it's Andy and I. So, Andy, how are you doing?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
I am good. Written a couple articles for different outlets, done a couple interviews, so ready to go today.
Yeah, it's WHL preseason. I think when they start, I know a couple teams played a few days ago, and the Giants are supposed to play today too. So it's
Yeah,
full year, I guess, for you guys.
unfortunately, the Giants were supposed to play yesterday. Game got canceled because there's too many players at NHL camps, especially, and basically they can't get enough players across the border and with all the situation. So it happens. But next Wednesday, if you are in the Lower Mainland / Fraser Valley and want to go watch some Giants action, they are playing on Wednesday at the Langley Events Center at 7 p.m. And then you can buy your tickets at the door. So that's exciting. First time since the Sedin's retirement night that I will be in a hockey arena watching a game of two different teams play each other. So it is pretty exciting.
That's a bonus when it's not the same team against each other.
Yeah, I like training camp. Honestly, the Giants training camp was great, but there was a little bit of animosity, but we know nothing's really going to happen. You're not going to take out your own teammate.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and also I know Canucks training camp starts today, so that's another one exciting. That's going to be exciting. We're going to start talking Vancouver Canucks hockey in a couple weeks, so stay tuned for that. So why don't we jump right into baseball here, because we got a couple games on going on right now, but why don't we look at the two games that haven't started just yet, and we'll start with Tampa Bay at Detroit. Tampa's minus 220 on the money line. What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, Detroit's a terrible team. They're kind of playing out the string. They got a lot of marginal MLB players, let's say, a lot of rookies, a lot of, sort of journeymen in the lineup. I'd take the Rays. The juice isn't very good, minus 220, but, the Rays still haven't locked up a playoff spot, haven't clinched the division, so they're still going to be leaving it all out there. So I'd take Tampa.
Now, here's a quick question. If people do not know this by now, Andy is a big Chicago Cubs fan. So which team would you rather have right now, the Chicago Cubs or the Detroit Tigers?
It's a hard question because, the Tigers have, I think, the number one prospect in baseball, and Spencer Torkelson. He's been tearing up AAA. He looks to be an absolute superstar. But then the Chicago Cubs, they have very minimal salary committed beyond the end of this season. I think they have Jason Hayward's their only player making over $20 million next year. So they have the financial flexibility to become super aggressive in free agency and get better quickly. Tough decision. I guess if I had to pick, I'd probably say Detroit, just because they've sucked for so long that they have enough super talented prospects MLB ready now, whereas the Cubs don't really have a lot of prospects in AA or AAA. They're mostly rookie ball and high A. So, I think the Tigers short term should be the better team, but long term, I think the Cubs will be better.
Plus, the Cubs already won their World Series. Can't get
That's
greedy
right,
twice
exactly.
in 100 years.
Yeah. Plus, if you pick Detroit, you can watch Miguel Cabrera, and he's setting, records, it seems like, every week. So
I feel like he's one of the most underrated players in baseball history. Nobody ever talks about him.
Yeah, it's true, right? Like, even you look at this era, people always mention Albert Pujols, but if you look career-wise, Cabrera has been more consistent and better for longer. He's going to finish with, he already has 500-plus home runs. He's got 3,000 hits. He's a for sure first ballot Hall of Famer, probably a top 5, top 10 right-handed hitter in 160 years of baseball. So Yeah, you talk about underrated. I don't, nobody, like you said, nobody ever talks about him, but he's legitimately one of the 5 or 6 best players to ever play in the league.
Yeah, because I feel like, for a long time with Detroit, it was always Max Scherzer. He was the big name, but yeah, Cabrera was just under the radar constantly.
Well, yeah, they had Scherzer and Verlander, and I mean, in 2012, Cabrera won the Triple Crown, which is something that Vlad Guerrero Jr. looks poised to do. And, we hear a lot about Vladdy Guerrero Jr. because we live in Canada and he plays for the Blue Jays. But again, we didn't really get that same sort of hype like you mentioned. It was more about the pitching and kind of the Tigers as a team rather than, Triple Crown winner Miguel Cabrera.
Once again, if you do have any betting questions on baseball, and we're going to switch over to football in a couple minutes, you can comment and we'll try to answer some of them. Let's move over to the other game, which is a huge game for the standings in the Texas Rangers versus the Houston Astros. We got a minus 180 on the Houston Astros. Are you taking the Astros, or do you think that the Texas Rangers can play spoiler?
Yeah, you know what? To be honest, I don't really know too much about the Rangers lineup right now, who they're sending out. The Astros, again, much like the Rays, haven't quite clinched the NL West yet, or the AL West, excuse me. The Mariners are a few games back. Oakland's kind of fading, but I generally like to take the team that's still trying to guarantee themselves a postseason appearance before you start betting on the spoilers. So I'd take the Astros in this game as well.
And it's actually going to be a pretty interesting battle down in the AL wild card, because Houston right now, if the season ended today, they get Toronto in the wild card. And then the Chicago White Sox get the New York Yankees. So, like, if you're Houston, would you rather take on Toronto, who's going on all of these streaks, or would you rather take on the Yankees, who are kind of fading at the moment?
I'd rather play the Yankees. I mean, the thing about Toronto, and I've said this for so long, is that I don't trust their bullpen or their rotation. Their rotation's been really solid the last month or so. Their bullpen is, getting the job done. And the problem with Toronto is that they score so many runs, and in a short series, whether it's the 1-game wild card or it's a 3-game division series, there's a good chance the Rays or the Blue Jays score 35, 40 runs in those 3 games, right? So, if the Blue Jays make the playoffs, I would want no part of playing against the Blue Jays, because you basically have to rely on your pitchers being perfect for an entire series, right? And it's really hard to do. Like, Vlad has a legit chance of the Triple Crown. Marcus Semion's playing second base, is going to hit 40 home runs this year. There's no holes in their lineup really. And, when you're trying to score 12, 15 runs a game to win games, it's a challenge. So yeah, I would want no part of the Blue Jays.
And I don't know if it's just because of where we live or anything, but a lot of the stuff I've heard is that Robbie Ray, people are talking about him for potentially the Cy Young, or even just not maybe winning it, but being nominated for the Cy Young.
Yeah, I mean, he's for sure a finalist. I think it comes down to him and Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole's kind of battling a bit of injuries right now. Robbie Ray has been, I think, a huge surprise, better than anybody could have expected he would have been. I think he leads the league in strikeouts right now. He's up there in wins. He's got a really good ERA. And that's the thing, right? In a 1-game series, like, if you face Robbie Ray and he goes 7-8 innings, and your other pitcher is up 6 runs, well, then you got to try to score 6, 7, 8 runs in 1 inning to beat the Blue Jays. It's probably not going to happen, right? So that's what makes the Blue Jays so scary in these short series, is that they can roll the rotation of Ray, Barrios, and I know Ryu hasn't really been playing that great lately, but there's 3 solid pitchers, and with the offense the Blue Jays have, like I said, I would want no part of the Blue Jays in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's almost like you don't want that second seed if the Blue Jays are going to be that second wildcard team. Like, having the higher seed is actually a disadvantage in the first round. And we've seen that in other sports as well. But this year, if the Blue Jays go in that second wildcard seed, who's ever in that second AL seed is going to be in trouble for sure.
Well, it's the same thing like in the NL West, right? Like, San Francisco clinched the division the other day. So you're going to have Dodgers, and Padres are kind of faded, but Dodgers are probably Reds or Cardinals in the wild card. Dodgers should win that. And then you're going to play if you're the second seed in the NL West or in the NL, you're playing the Dodgers in the opening round series. I mean, they have Kershaw, one of the best pitchers ever. Walker Buehler's had a Cy Young caliber season. And I mean, they added Trey Turner at the trade deadline. Like, they're a loaded team too. I would want no part of the Dodgers. And like you said, it's kind of a disadvantage if you end up having to play the wild card because, the Dodgers aren't a traditional wild card team when you look at their roster, right? To me, they have the best roster in the league. And now your reward for having the best record in the NL is you get to play the Dodgers. Like, that doesn't seem like a reward.
Yeah, and a guy that we talked about as well a little bit earlier, Max Scherzer. Like, this team just has everybody. Mookie Betts.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah, like
I didn't even think about that. But you're going to face Kershaw, Scherzer, and Buehler. Like, good luck.
Yeah, and then the pitchers are going to face guys like Seager, Mookie Betts, Justin Turner. It's like the list goes on and on and on and on. I just don't understand. It's one of those weird years. It's an odd year, so the Giants do well. But if you put some money on the Giants early in the season to win the NL West, you're walking away with quite a lot of cash right now. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, well, I was looking at this yesterday, actually, and I think most of their projections had them right around 81 and 81, 80 and 82, 85 wins. Like, they were not expected to first of all win the division, and number two, to even be above 500. So it's, I keep waiting for the Giants to fall off. I know we had Gord on here about a month ago, and we kind of said the same thing. Like, some point the Giants have to slow down, and we're at the point now they played 140 something games and they're still leading the division. So like, what happens in the playoffs, who knows?
Yeah, it's that like I said, they do the World Series in the even years, but you know what, like 1921 they won the World Series, maybe 2021 they can repeat it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't bet against them at this point. Like I said, I've been waiting since about mid-May for the Giants to slow down, and they haven't. So,
okay, so let's jump over to a little bit of football here, down below the border. If you guys missed our show on Saturday, we did do, or Sunday morning before the kickoff, we did run through some games. We were above 500. I know that. I'm not as sure the exact number, but we did okay with the bets. So I'm going to throw this out to you. Boosted odds for tonight's Thursday night football that is going to be starting in about an hour. Daniel Jones and what's his name? Tyler Heineke throw for 260 plus yards each. And that's at plus 275 with a max bet of $50. Do you think that these quarterbacks are just going to light up the defenses tonight?
I think Heineke is for Washington. The one thing that would scare me about that bet is that you need Daniel Jones to hit as well. Traditionally he's been a very inaccurate, inconsistent quarterback, and Washington probably has, if not the best pass rush in the league, then number 2 pass rush. So he's going to be under a ton of pressure, not going to have a lot of time. He's probably going to be scrambling a lot. I like those odds. I'd probably make that bet just for the odds. But if you were to ask me straight up, do I think Daniel Jones has 260 yards passing? I'd probably have to say no.
Well, here's my biggest problem with Daniel Jones, based off of like what I've seen over the years, and that is that it's like they have a good drive going, they're ready to go, and then he fumbles the ball, or he throws an interception, and it's kind of like a dumb mistake. He also runs the ball a little bit too much for my liking. If I'm betting on, certain passing, I just don't see it where he throws over 200 yards today. Even though I know that the Washington defense, it's a pretty good defense. It's not the best in the league, but I just think that he fumbles the ball too much. He throws too many interceptions, and he just makes too many mistakes at the moment to really be a factor when it comes to the betting odds.
No, I agree. Like you said, right? He likes to run the ball, and if he's going to be, chased all over the field by guys like Chase Young, you have to think he's going to scramble a lot. And every time he scrambles, it's an opportunity he's not throwing, right? So, like I said, I mean, for the odds at, what'd you say, I think plus 275, that's pretty good value. But if you were to ask me yes or no straight up, I'd probably say no.
Yeah, I know he had over 250 yards last week, but that's the Broncos defense. It's not the Washington Redskins defense, which is arguably better for sure.
Yeah.
But just staying on this one thing before we go on, I'm just quickly looking up his game logs from last year, because if I'm not mistaken, he didn't even do very well against Washington last year. He had 112 yards in their first meeting, and then 212 yards in their second meeting. So, it's telling us that when he plays Washington, he doesn't have these ball-out games. But once again, this is the NFL. Who would have thought, last week's Raiders game would have ended with a cover 0 play in overtime after Derek Carr throws an interception on the 1 yard line. So who knows, really? Or that,
exactly.
Or what's his name? Tyrod Taylor would light up the league in week 1.
Yeah.
Or that your boy Aaron Rodgers couldn't even throw a ball to an open receiver, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too happy about that. I'm in one league with my friends, and I think going into the afternoon games, I had like a 97% chance of winning, and I ended up losing that week because Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones combined for, I think, 7 points. So, yeah, wasn't great. But speaking of Aaron Rodgers, that's actually the first game I want to highlight here. And the NFL schedule, it's the Monday night game. Packers are minus 11.5 and minus 650 on the money line. So my question to you, Adam, is do you even make that bet if you're giving Detroit 12 points, or your odds on the money line are negative 650?
I don't think the Packers are going to blow out the Lions. I think that Jared Goff is a better quarterback than we give him credit to. I don't think that the Lions are going to win, but I don't see it being more than a 7-point game in the end. Like, Green Bay has given us nothing to believe that they can beat the Lions by 11.5. Detroit almost came back against San Francisco last week.
Yeah.
And San Francisco is a better team than Green Bay. Like, I know that the quarterback situation in San Francisco is a little bit iffy with Jimmy Garoppolo, but I don't know. That defense in San Francisco is just way too good, and Green Bay hasn't really shown us anything. So I know why they're putting an 11.5-point favorite out there, because Aaron Rodgers is definitely going to have a bounce back game, but there's no confidence for me in that Green Bay can move the ball consistently and actually stop somebody on defense. Didn't they give up, 38 points last week?
Yeah. See,
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but why would you have faith in them?
Yeah, no, it's a good point, right? Like I see this game as an absolute shootout because Detroit has a terrible defense. They're missing Jeff Aduka, who's probably their best defensive back. And like you said, Green Bay gave up 38 points to Jameis Winston. Their defense has been absolutely terrible. They have no pass rush. And after what the Lions did in that fourth quarter there against San Francisco, coming back against an elite defense, why would we have any confidence that a mediocre defense can do better than what San Francisco did? So in this game, I would be all over the over. The over is 48 points, pays out minus 110. So not great odds, but I feel like it's a better bet than Packers minus 11.5.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have anything to say about the Packers. Like, I had a lot of faith coming into them, but Aaron Rodgers has, there's a photo of Aaron Rodgers basically sitting on the sideline, I'm done with this team. That's what it kind of looks like. I think he's mentally checked out, and he's playing if I play bad, then they're going to be forced to trade me at the deadline so that they can get something and start Jordan Love, like we've seen with guys like Patrick Mahomes and Jackson in Baltimore. I can't remember Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, where they didn't start right away, but after time they kind of replaced it. So I think that he's done and that he's showing it for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing, right? Is that possibly he just had a bad game and no preseason, it's kind of some rust, or like you said, the other option is he's totally checked out and doesn't care and is putting in a minimal effort. So like we've been talking about, do you really want to bet 12 points on Rodgers being rusty or he actually doesn't care and is checked out? I sure wouldn't.
It's funny, I don't really pay attention too much to the off-field drama that goes on and everything like that with the players, but people are like, there was like a petition for what's their name, Shailene Woodley, to like dump Aaron Rodgers so that Packer fans could have a chance at a Super Bowl this year or something. And I'm like, come on, like it's not him, it's not her who's causing him to play bad. It's that the Packers is a toxic situation for him right now, and it's like he needs to get out of there.
See, that makes me laugh because last year when they were engaged in secret and Rodgers had an MVP season, so somehow from last year when they were together, it was fine, but now this year all of a sudden it's a problem.
I also like how people are saying that by week 4 he'll be behind the desk at Jeopardy.
Yeah,
So
I mean, who knows, right? He wants that Jeopardy job.
yeah. Okay, so let's move on from the Aaron Rodgers talk before I lose my mind here. Why don't we talk about the Seattle Seahawks at Tennessee Titans, a little bit more, I guess, local to Vancouver theme. Seahawks minus 260, Tennessee at plus 225. I'm going to take the Seahawks, and you know what? It pains me because I have Derrick Henry in my fantasy league, but I just think that it's not going to be a passing. It's not going to be high passing because these two defenses are pretty good against the pass. It's going to be a lot of running the ball, and I think that Derrick Henry and Chris Carson will put up some big numbers, but you won't see a big score on there. So I do think that both might go over 100 yards, but you won't see like a 45-35 game or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Tennessee got bullied last week by Arizona. In this game, the Seahawks minus 260 on the money line. I like that bet, but I also like Tennessee plus 6.5. Like you said, I don't think it'll be super high scoring, which generally leads to tighter games. So giving 6.5 to Tennessee, I like that bet as well.
Yeah. Let's talk. Let's go around the NFL a little bit to some of these interesting games. Las Vegas Raiders at Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh's minus 250. Las Vegas plus 215. That surprises me a lot because I know that the Steelers did beat the Bills last week, but the Raiders playing Baltimore, who a lot of people think are going to the Super Bowl. I don't get why the line is so big on the Pittsburgh Steelers to win that game, but I am not as many people know, I am not a huge believer in Derek Carr. But I just don't see why that line is so high.
Yeah, that is confusing to me. That minus 250 for Pittsburgh. I mean, I guess it's Pittsburgh's home opener. Vegas is on the road, but again, I see it being a pretty close game. I think Pittsburgh probably wins, but I could see this definitely being, like a 3, 4, 5 point victory, not a blowout. So that line does surprise me as well.
Yeah. And then one other one that I was looking into was, sorry, just blanking for a second here. The Baltimore Ravens versus the KC Chiefs. Baltimore's at plus 165. Kansas City's at minus 190. So that one could be very interesting because that is what a lot of people think that the AFC championship game is going to be this year.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the teams, they're probably the two best teams in the AFC for sure, and you can make the argument the two best teams in the whole NFL. So Baltimore, like we mentioned earlier, coming off that tough loss in overtime. You know what? I actually like Baltimore plus 165 in this game. I know Kansas City has an explosive offense. I'm not sold on Kansas City and their containment of Lamar Jackson. I think Jackson is going to have a really big game. So plus 165 for Baltimore on Sunday Night Football. I really like that bet.
So it will be interesting because Baltimore, out of today, one of their cornerbacks, Chris Westry, has a torn lateral meniscus, so he's going to be out. He was one of those players that was slowly starting to get into the rotation, but Devontae Freeman is going to be with them. I believe Le'Veon Bell is going to be with them, so their backfield is going to be a lot stronger than it was last week. Jeez.
Falling over there.
Yeah. But yeah, like, if part of the Area 51 podcast network, Jay Bowman, he's was talking about how he's constantly picking up Ravens running backs because every single time he does, he goes down with like a season-ending injury here. So maybe Devontae Freeman and Le'Veon Bell can kind of ease out that backfield for the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting with Bell and Freeman, like you said. Traditionally, Baltimore's a pretty good running team, so I guess the one advantage of their system is it's kind of plug and play at running back. But yeah, I mean, it should be a great game. Like you said, the Baltimore secondary is pretty banged up. I think Marcus Peters is dealing with some injuries too, so that tends to lend itself to high scoring games with Mahomes' offense and Jackson's offense going back and forth. At the very least, it'll be a much more entertaining game than last Sunday night, so that's good.
And the last game that I want to talk about here before we wrap up is the Chicago Bears at the Cincinnati Bengals. Right now, the Cincinnati Bengals are at plus 115. The Chicago Bears are at minus 130. Now, this is an interesting line for many reasons, and that is that I feel like this line is really dependent on who is under center for the Chicago Bears. Because if it's Justin Fields, well, then maybe you have a little bit of confidence behind it. But I don't really have much confidence in Andy Dalton as a starter in the league anymore, especially in that tough division.
Yeah, I mean, Andy Dalton is 35th best quarterback in the NFL. Like he's not a good starter, but he's one of the best backups in the league. And if you watched last Sunday night, the Bears team just looked so different when they had Justin Fields in. And I would love to see, Justin Fields' recent first-round pick against Joe Burrow, the first overall pick last year. So I really hope the Bears start Fields. If they don't, I think it's pretty easy bet on Cincinnati. But if they do start Fields, I might have to reconsider.
And here's one thing that I don't like. I don't get when I'm looking at that line is that the Bears got absolutely demolished last week. They lost 34-14 against the Rams. The Bengals beat the Vikings 27-24. It seems like a lot of teams are disrespecting the Bengals here, like thinking that it's maybe like a 1 week wonder type thing. But I'm thinking that the tandem of Joe Burrow and his receiving core, they got a good defense, that they could really make some noise in that division this year. Maybe even push for a wild card spot.
Yeah, I mean, it's the division. I don't think they can have a chance at, just because they do have Cleveland and Baltimore in the division. But with that extra playoff spot this year, I could see Cincinnati being in the mix down to the end. Kind of like we discussed earlier, the AFC doesn't really have the depth the NFC does. I mean, they have 2-3 juggernauts, but they don't really have as much depth and quality of team. So yeah, I mean, Cincinnati does look like they have a decent team, and I could see them being in the mix down the stretch for sure.
And outside of the division opponents, they do have a lot of winnable games. They're playing the Jaguars, they're playing the Lions, the Jets. So this is a team that does have winnable games. Also the Broncos, but it's that division that's the problem. You have to play the Browns twice. You have to play the Ravens. The Browns twice and the Steelers twice. Yeah, and then the Ravens twice. So, but if they can pull out some of those wins and maybe go 3-3 in the division, that they definitely have a shot at the wild card.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially you think AFC East, Bills are probably the best team. Dolphins, maybe. Patriots, maybe. AFC South is a tire fire. AFC West, outside of Kansas City is a tire fire too. So yeah, I mean, it's a good call up by you. We've, I don't know if Bet99 has any playoff odds on the Bengals making the playoffs, but that would be something I'd definitely be looking at long and hard for sure.
Yeah. So they're in the AFC North, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Bengals are a plus 1,100 to win the division. So maybe not put a bet on that. It doesn't seem like smart money to put a bet on it necessarily. But it's interesting because if I'm looking at this right, the Cincinnati Bengals on Bet99.com actually don't have Super Bowl odds. Oh, they have a Super Bowl odd to make it to the Super Bowl at plus 4,400, but they don't have odds for the Bengals to win the Super Bowl. So maybe there's just no faith there. They're disrespecting Joe Burrow's boys. What's going on here?
I have them here to make the playoffs at plus 370. So,
yeah.
That's pretty good odds. And like we said, the AFC doesn't have a ton of good teams. So that's definitely something that I would be very interested in is plus 370 for Cincy to make the playoffs.
And easy money right there. Cincinnati regular season wins plus 108 over 6.5. Easy bet, easy win right there. They're going to get over 7 wins. I'll put that down. I'll throw that down. I don't think there's going to be much debate on that one. What do you think?
No, I don't. Well, I don't think so at all. Like you said, they're playing the Lions. They already beat the Vikings, and they play the Jets, Broncos. I mean, there's 4 or 5 wins right there, right? So yeah, it seems like a pretty smart bet.
Okay, so I guess we'll wrap it up there for this week. And are there any other games that you want to look at, or do you think we're good to go for this week?
Yeah, I don't think there's any other games. The one thing I would say this week is definitely watch for some high-scoring games. It seems last week we had, let's say, some questionable defense, especially in defensive backs coverage. So wherever possible, I'd probably be betting on the overs on these point totals.
Exactly. It's going to be a fun week of NFL football once again. First game kicks off in about 50 minutes. The Giants versus the Redskins. Or not the Redskins, sorry, the Washington football team. I got to get used to that still as well. I know when at the home opener for the Edmonton, the PA announcer called them the Eskimos instead of the Elks. So I think everybody's getting used to these name changes, which we've talked about how it was a good idea to make this name change, but it is going to take a little bit of time for people who have called them that name for over 20 years, 30 years to get used to it.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so let's wrap her up. Join us again next week, Thursday at 4:00 for some more betting news and advice. And don't forget to check out all of the other shows on Area 51 Sports Network. So once again, thank you to our partners at Bet99.com. For Andy, I'm Adam, and thank you for watching this week's episode of the UFO Show.